George Weiland of IFCB Tulsa, presenting Eddie Huff.
Single German mother and a black American soldier in post-war Germany. He grew up in the early part of his life speaking only German. When he came to America, he lived in the projects of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As a freshman at Texas Tech University, he became a black radical hippie, accepting all the late 60s, early 70s leftist ideology. If you're familiar with the names of H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, Angela Davis, Eldridge Cleaver, Eddie knows those names very well. He attended and graduated from Texas Tech University in 1973 with a bachelor's degree in management. From 76 to 78, he attended Melodyland School of Theology in Anaheim, California under the direction of Dr. Ralph Wilkerson. Eddie earned his Master of Divinity degree and is a licensed minister. For 12 years, he was connected with Youth with a Mission. He and his wife, Vicki, have been married now for 40 years. His countries of assignment under YWAM included Amsterdam, Augsburg, Germany.
May I have your attention? Please, may I have your attention? We are currently under a tornado warning. Your storm shelters are the immediate bathroom in your room. The east and west sides of each floor have a stairwell. Those are tornado shelters. And on the first floor is the Seminole room. We are under a warning, and we are watching conditions.
Continuing, the countries in which Eddie has served with Youth with a Mission include Holland, Germany, Uganda, Kenya, and South Africa, among others. Eddie has spoken before thousands in Europe and Africa, as well as the United States. You can hear him every morning on AM 1170 KFAQ on the Pat Campbell Morning Show on Talk Radio. Please help me in welcoming Eddie Huff as our speaker today. Thank you.
I don't know how long I'm going to be able to speak. I had planned to do, it's God. It says that a day is as 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. So I'm only going to take a couple of seconds here. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here, George. Thank you for your invitation. And I see a lot of friends, a lot of people that I don't know, but it's interesting, the timing on my invitation. George invited me, I think 6 weeks ago, way back, and then this whole thing blew up last week with Baton Rouge and Minnesota, and then, of course, the Dallas shootings, and it's created a real crazy atmosphere in America. And the scripture I want to start with today is from 2 Timothy 1:6. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, of power, and a sound mind. Amen. And I think we really need to have that, and especially right now with this tornado watch too. The sound mind means when it's time, we better go. But at the same time, the spirit of fear, we don't have to be afraid, okay? And I honestly believe God isn't going to let anything happen anyway, because all of the believers are here. But yeah, you've heard some of my testimony. When I hear some of this stuff, when I read my own biography and I hear these things, I have to say, did you really do that? I mean, I'm serious. And when I think of, I could tell you stories that I don't even believe, but they actually happened. But God has been real good. As it was said, I grew up in Germany. I was a little what's his name? Steve Martin said in The Jerk, I was born a poor black child in Bavaria. Which is kind of the odd thing. I was actually born in a little German village. And every day, I don't do notes, okay? I can't, I've tried. I just cannot do notes. So, because as God speaks to me, and hopefully you get something out of it. I'm also ADHD too. But anyway, so the Nazis, as you know, were really into this racial purity thing and the Aryan race and the super race and everything. So what the Americans did after World War II, as you know, a lot of you, the Army the military didn't integrate until 1951. Up until 1951, under Truman, the Army was segregated. So you had all black troops and all white troops, and they kept them apart. And so you had all black military bases. So what they did, they found all of Hitler's strongholds, and they put all black troops there. And so if you go to certain parts of Germany, in Bavaria in particular, you're going to see a whole lot of people, Germans, that look like me. And if you may be tempted to speak English, and they say, "Was man?" Yeah. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. A lot of people don't know. When you study some of the history, it's crazy. But that's what it's kind of like we did in the Civil War, the North, with Reconstruction in the South, and the way they tried to poke it to the Confederates with Reconstruction and taking all the power from all of the white officials and putting black people into their place and making them like it. Well, they didn't like it. And a lot of what you see today is a result of Reconstruction. Something that was intended for good, in a sense, turning bad. Because what happened, you took power from people that knew what they were doing. They weren't doing it right, but they knew what they were doing, and you replaced them with people that really didn't have the experience, the knowledge, the background, or anything to do these things. So all of a sudden, you replace all of the white, the Congress people, the mayor, the sheriff. Yet all of a sudden you had a black sheriff. Imagine you're in a town hall, and you're used to one day the person's a slave, the next day he's your mayor, or your sheriff, and so. It created a lot of animosity. And so what happened, there was this resentment, and it was all mainly fostered by the Republican Party. What a lot of people don't know is the Republican Party was founded for one thing, and that was end slavery. Yeah. I don't care what anybody tells you, but that's the whole reason you have a Republican Party today. That's what's so weird. The black community doesn't know this. They think, in fact, the Democrats had the audacity in 2008 to put in their platform that the Democrats are responsible for ending slavery. And when they fought it all the way, even after, did you know the Ku Klux Klan was formed by the Democrats? They were their ISIS, basically. What they did, it wasn't because the people were black that they were getting lynched or crosses burned in front of their house. It was because they were Republicans. And the problem, and the reason black people suffered the brunt is because in those days, if you were black, you were a Republican. And it was to deter you from voting. It was all about keeping you from voting, and then them winning elections, the Democrats, and getting their power back in Washington. That's all this was. Everything is political. Seriously, it's to the economics and politics. I don't care what you try to do, you can't separate it from anything we do. And so this is.
Can I have your attention, please? The tornado warning has been dropped to a severe thunderstorm watch.
Thank you, Peter.
Everything is clear, but continue to monitor the weather.
Okay, now I'll only speak for a minute. I think you missed it, Ted, when I said earlier, but anyway. Here's another thing. From 1865, when the Ku Klux Klan started lynching people, including whites, if you were a Republican, to keep you from voting, to terrorize you from voting, they would first warn you with this burning cross to let you know they were there, and then if you didn't stop, they would kill you. But they finally got their power back. They instituted then these Jim Crow laws, which reinstituted a form of slavery. It's more like apartheid that happened in South Africa. But from 1865 to 1965, the Republicans tried 200 times to pass legislation to ban lynching, to make it actually against the law. I mean, can you imagine? Just grabbing somebody and lynching them wasn't against the law all that time. So in all this time, they had tried 200 times to pass these anti-lynching laws. And each time the Democrats would filibuster, they would vote it down. And you even had people like Al Gore Sr., Al Gore's dad, Robert Byrd, who was what's called a Grand Kleagle. He was a recruiter for the Ku Klux Klan. All these Democrats fighting against these anti-lynching laws. Finally, in 1965, with the Civil Rights Act, they got it done. The reason I bring all of this up is because we have been fed a load of goods. We've been, by the way, another one, the NAACP was formed by white Republicans. It wasn't W.E.B. Du Bois or some black person. The first black leader of the NAACP, it was formed in 1909. The first black head of the NAACP didn't happen until about 1929. So it was like 20 years later that they had actually the first. It was started by a group of white Jews, actually, Republicans. That's who actually started the NAACP. So all along through history, this is the thing. But in the meantime, you've had this agitation going on between the black community and white community. Nevertheless, in the midst of all of that, you had black men lining up to go fight for this country. Fight for this country from World War I, many of them being decorated for going off to fight for freedom in Europe, to protect, in those days they went to fight the Kaiser, and they would come home and they'd be spit upon and go right back into this type of subjection here in America. I remember meeting a friend of my dad's one time. My dad was a career Army. He did 26 years in the military. And meeting one of his friends, and this guy was just started crying when he told the story. They did their basic training at Fort Sill in Lawton, Oklahoma. And they would put him on a train and take him out west. And somehow the train, I guess, went through Dallas and then east. And he remembers going through a town, going off to Germany to fight, and looking out of the window and some person in some little town saying, "Nigger, don't get off that train if you know what's good for you." And here was this person going to fight for this person's right to say these things. So when you see this anger, you see this animosity that we have in the black community, these are the roots. But what's interesting, the people who suffered that aren't the ones who are really the ones who are out there agitating today. It wasn't even my generation. I went to Texas Tech and I got into it because it was the cool thing to do. I'll be real honest. I became this radical black militant because it was hip. You know, white kids became hippies and we became Black Panthers or wannabes or something. You know, we grew up, the white kids grew their hair to here, we grew it to here. My brother Melvin's trying to recreate that. But this is how I used to look. I mean, you know, I was like really confused though. I'd have hippie beads on with mine, you know, and things. But it was a weird time. But again, that generation, the people that really suffered the wrong aren't the ones who had all the anger. My dad, for example, he's from Mississippi. And so their movie theater there growing up was segregated. So all the kids used to go, as many of you may be old enough to remember that we used to have Saturday matinees. And you'd go watch these, and you'd watch like 3 movies and cartoons, and it was just like the thing to do on Saturdays. And so all the kids are there. Well, but the black people had to sit in the balcony, and they called it the crow's nest.
Wow.
You know, yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's why I'm not just dying laughing. You know, I mean, somebody would say, "Oh, you know, it's offensive," but it's actually funny. But my dad would tell me these stories that they had to be separated up in the balcony But the way they looked at it, they had the best seat in the house. They loved that balcony. I used to love it. I would try to get in the balcony, you know. I didn't know the history. And the heroes. Who were the heroes in those days? It was Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, The Shadow. You know, all these were the heroes in those days. To black and white alike. The astronauts. When Alan B. Shepard first went, I was there. I watched it live. I was in the 4th grade, and I remember my mom let me go to school late so I could watch this rocket launch, and at Holloman Air Force Base is where we were, and I saw this, and man, I get goosebumps now still thinking about it. He wasn't some white man in a rocket. He was an American astronaut beating the Russians into space, or you know, and I want to be like him. You know, I hear this crap. Excuse me for that, but I call it CLC, crazy liberal crap is what I call CLC surgery. But anyway, these poor children, they don't have anybody that looks like them to be a role model. You don't need anybody that looks like you. Be the first. Yeah. Right? I mean, I don't care. You think Obama needed a role model to become president? No. How did he do it without imagine, how did that happen? I mean, all of these things are silly. The pilot, Tuskegee Airmen, okay? There were no role models. They didn't even let black people fly. Nobody knew they could fly. But they did it. There's so much rich history because we didn't have the stupid stuff that is supposed to keep us behind, which are just fake obstacles. These aren't real obstacles. These are some made-up obstacles. Amen. And so I'm just giving you like a little background on what's happened. So when the Civil Rights Movement came along, Martin Luther King Jr. comes along. Everybody thinks Martin Luther King, and listen, one thing I do, when I debate, and I do this I was saying to the people yesterday, to me, how many ladies in here particularly play Words with Friends? Raise your hands if any of you play Words with Friends. It's Scrabble on the phone. Anybody play that? No. Okay, well, here's some guy. Oh, good. My wife, she's addicted to. I mean, she sits there, we're watching, and she's like, "This is her phone." Later, you know, we're in bed. It's dark, and you see this little glow. Well, I play Words with Friends too, but it's called Facebook and Twitter and arguing online. And what you have to learn, if you want to be good at it, you have to be able to take offense. Let me see. Hear objectionable stuff without being offended. And for example, I like to be offensive but not offend. Yeah. So, and I like people to give it back, and when I get a good one, I start laughing. I go, I say, "Oh man, that was a good one." You know, I don't let them know. But it's like me playing Words with Friends. You know, I don't let them know that they got a good one in. But then what do? I go research and find, and then I go back. I don't get offended. This is what I do, and this is what we have to learn how to do. You cannot get offended. Okay, it comes with that no spirit of fear, love, power, and a sound mind. So anyway, Martin Luther King, and the reason I say this is because I know I'm going to offend somebody. And by the way, right now I'm going to probably offend maybe some black people that like Martin Luther King, but if you're not, I'll get to you, okay? Just but anyway, so Martin Luther King, a lot of people think that his great speech, that I Have a Dream speech, was his crowning glory. That speech happened in September of 1963. Okay. After that, Martin Luther King almost drifted into obscurity. The people like Stokely Carmichael, A.Trap Brown, the Black Panthers, these people were rising. It was the Black militant movement. Ooh. The Black Power movement rose, and they thought that Martin Luther King Jr. was an Uncle Tom. They thought he wasn't radical enough. So they actually were, and Malcolm X is another one, by the way. So they really started discarding, and a lot of the young people weren't listening to him. Here's the thing that really propelled Martin Luther King Jr. to prominence, and people don't want you to remember this, but really it was the anti-war movement. He hooked up with communists in the anti-war movement. They began funding him. They began, and labor. It was basically the socialist movement in America that began backing Martin Luther King Jr. And this happened in 1967 is when he came back. And he was going all around the country, giving these speeches against the war and doing these things, the same things Jesse Jackson does. I keep getting tired of people saying, well, if Martin Luther King were alive today, he wouldn't do. Yes, he would. He's the father of all this stuff, okay? He's Jesse Jackson's daddy. He's Sharpton's uncle. I mean, basically, they get their thinking from Martin Luther King. It just has evolved to the point it is today. And they have one thing in mind: getting paid. I call them rented Negroes, okay? and we have them on the conservative side too. Yeah. If Sharpton or Jesse do something, I know who's going to be on Hannity tonight, okay? Yeah. It's the same group of people, and they're out there talking. Yeah, black people need to do this. Black people need to do that. And no, that's not how you do it, okay? And that's one of the problems. We keep talking about black people instead of speaking to them, speaking with them. Now, with that, having said all of that, how do you talk with them? Okay? You can't talk over, and you have to start at the grassroots. We Republicans and conservatives, we're all about electing a president in Congress, and so we get all fired up about the congressional races, the Senate races, and everything. And then the stuff right here locally is just getting overlooked. I mentioned this yesterday. Jim Bridenstine got over 50,000 votes, okay? Of that 50,000, Eric, I'm gonna guess 30,000 of them came from Tulsa, okay?
Yes, that's good, yes.
Okay, about 30,000 of the votes. Dewey got 10,000 votes, okay? He lost by 11,000 votes. Had a third of those 30-some thousand that voted for Jim Bridenstine voted for Dewey, Dewey would be mayor today. Now, it's not about necessarily Dewey being the best guy or whatever, but the guy we're getting, basically the only thing he has really accomplished in his time on the city council is to make the LGBT a protected class in the city hiring practices, and actually codified it in the city charter that in hiring and everything, and all you do, no discrimination against gays, transgenders, and so forth. That's basically his claim to fame. He is all about making Tulsa a world city. There's this organization, World Cities. And essentially what they're trying to do, they're going to turn us into San Francisco. And this is what G.T. Bynum is all about. Yet a lot of people, because they didn't like Dewey for this, or he, he's too confrontational with it. Well, maybe he should have been confrontational. I mean, do you ever think of that? Just because you get along is not always good. I don't know of one real conservative on the city council right now. None. Okay, they're all gone. And we're talking South Tulsa, which is known to be staunchly conservative and so forth. So I'm not going to start. Yesterday I named names, but I'm not going to name names today because it's a different group. But anyway, here's the deal. As believers, and I do this whole long seminar, it's called Race, Racism, in the Kingdom of God. And it deals with what race really is. There really is no such thing. It's not about skin color. Okay? It's not about skin color. Acts 17 says, of one blood he made all mankind, okay, and determine the times and their boundaries, okay, and so it's not really about the color. The color is just an identifier. It's like blonde ladies, red-headed ladies, dark-headed ladies, blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, tall, short, but it's just easy to identify black people as a group because we tend to live, we're from the same tribe, overall the same, initially the Bantu tribe from Central Africa that spread east, west, and then eventually south. And, excuse me, but it's more of a culture class thing. If you take the Kennedy clan or even the Clintons now, and some of these people, do you think that they would want their daughter to marry any of your kids any more than they would want to marry one of my kids? No, because why? Because you're not in that strata, okay? A better example, Vijay Singh, I used him yesterday, the golfer, Vijay Singh, okay? Vijay Singh is black, he's black, but nobody considers him black. And there was a boxer, Larry Holmes, heavyweight champion of the world, those of you that used to follow boxing, and a black world champion, heavyweight champion, and he went to fight in South Africa. There's this big casino they had down in South Africa. This is during apartheid, and people asked him, well, why would you go to South Africa during apartheid when you're black? And he says, what do you mean? He says, if you're black and you got money, you ain't black. And it was the truth. I went there. I went to South Africa during apartheid with Youth with a Mission, with YWAM. And I'll never forget, I was staying in a suburb of Johannesburg, an all-white township. And the friends I was staying with, I was going, and I left something in the car, so I'll be right. So I run to the car, and some guy's walking his dog, and I hear him yelling something in Afrikaans, and I knew what he was saying. He said, hey, you there, what are you doing? And so what I did, and he's yelling, he's off, and so I go to him, I get in his face, what did you say? He said, oh, American chap, are you? Honest, no joke. I mean, all of a sudden, just being American, I was no longer black. And this is the crazy, and so I'm watching this horse race. It's like their version of the Kentucky Derby. And they have the fashion show, just like, you know, the ladies with the big hats, and the nice dresses, and the guys all duded up in tuxes or big suits and stuff, and just enjoying themselves. And they had a fashion show, a contest. And the runner-up couple was this black couple. And I'm watching, I told her, whoa, come here. What is this? And they said, what do you mean? This couple here. And they said, oh, that's Dr. something. And I said, but they're black. I said, yeah, so. I said, wait a minute, you got apartheid. You can't have black people living. Oh, no, that's only for normal black people. Dr. So-and-so, he's this millionaire. You know, he lives in the most exclusive part of Johannesburg. He lives in a gated white community, you know. And this is where I got my revelation that it's not really about race, okay? It's about culture, and we miss the point when we want to make this about race. Now, in America, the black community has been convinced that it is about race, that it's about their color, but it's not, it's about their culture. There was a movie Sidney Poitier did, so it was actually To Serve With Love 2, the second version. And he was this teacher, but instead of being in London, he was in New York now. And he did this little experiment, and he took these kids out on an outing, and he took these black kids, and he said, and these white kids, he told the white kid, I want you to go ask this lady for directions somewhere. And so this white kid who was really a punk, he goes, and you don't hear what he says, and the lady starts hitting him with her purse and telling him to get away, and then he tells these black kids, you go, and he said, but before you go, and he whispers something in their ears, and they go, and sure enough, you know, and they get the directions and everything. And what he was trying to show is, what he told the kids is to say, excuse me, ma'am. My group and I, we're here, we're lost, and we're trying to get to this place. And the lady was very good, oh, sure, young man, and told them where to go. If I come to some place and I've got sagging pants, and I've got a certain look, and I won't look you in the eye, and with an attitude, it instantly paints a picture, not of a black person, but of a certain kind of person. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not they're not looking at the skin. They're looking at the total being, that what's being projected. I get stopped by the police all the time. And listen, racial profiling, it exists, okay? Anybody that says it doesn't is lying to you. They do stop you because you're black, driving a certain car in the wrong place at the wrong time or whatever. And I really, honestly, I don't have a problem with it if they're honest about it. You know, there's, sir, we're stopping you, this is a drug route. And like I was going to Nashville one time and was in Memphis, and I was 1 mile over the speed limit, he pulled me over and he told me, that this is a major drug route, and I was in a rental car. And I was speeding, and it was an out-of-state rental car, black person. Actually, I think he thought I was Hispanic, actually, when he first saw me. But that's what they do. They do profile. And then after it was done, he said, listen, I really sincerely appreciate it. I apologize for your delay. He was nice, and I went on. But he was honest. If they're not honest, that's what gets me. And this brings me to the whole thing with our attitude towards the shootings in Baton Rouge and up in Minneapolis and others. On the other side, the white community, particularly conservatives, the first thing we seem to want to do is dig up all the dirt we can on the person that was shot to somehow justify the fact that this policeman shot them. Why? Do you do the same to find out what history the cop may have had? Had he had any reports, any incidences in the past? No. We automatically want to give the benefit of the doubt to the policeman. If we truly want to be fair and honest and deal justly with everybody, then what we do, we step back and we let things play out. Now, I'm not going to try to dig up dirt on the victim or the perpetrator or whatever, but I'm also not going to let the cop off the hook automatically or do the same there. You have people that do that. And if you look at historically the fact, if you think about how many shootings there are more white young people in particular that get shot by the police every year than black ones.
That's true.
The incidences just don't get reported because it's not valuable to anybody. And so the same people who elevated Martin Luther King Jr. to prominence to the point where he is now almost sainted are the same people who are pushing this agenda. Now, this brings me to what can we do as believers, as Christians, as conservatives? From the early 1900s and up until the fall of the Iron Curtain, communists, actually started in the 1800s, but tried everything they could to destroy the capitalist United States system. And first they tried it through labor unions, and they felt that the people would rebel and tear down this capitalistic system we had. That wasn't working, so they went to the black community. They just knew, hey, these people have been enslaved, they are under Jim Crow, they're a natural market for us to create this revolution and destroy America. They failed miserably. Then in 89, when the Berlin Wall came down and the entire Soviet empire crumbled, what happened is they went underground. A lot of people think, oh, we've won over communism. Well, where did they go? They didn't have a communist rapture. They didn't just appear. They're somewhere. Well, what they did, they were able to now work quietly, stealthily, infiltrate different things. They've infiltrated education. They've infiltrated our legal system, our media, the arts, you name it, they're there. And so they've been quietly working, and what they've been doing, they've been giving money to these groups. NAACP, George Soros, everyone knows that name because he's kind of the poster child for the billionaire progressive class. He's given millions, $20, $30 million to the NAACP over the last 10, 20 years. He's now given over $10 million to Black Lives Matter. And he's not interested in Black lives or anything. He's interested in destroying the system that we have in America.
Amen.
And it's not even the economic system. They want to be free from the shackles of Judeo-Christian ethic.
Yes.
They don't want God or people that believe in God to encumber them. They want to be able to say, there is no God, and we're free, and we can do whatever we want. All they're doing is using the black community, Hispanic community, women, gays, lesbians, you name it. It's all because they want to destroy our system. In 2 Chronicles 20, there's an example of Jehoshaphat. He had sinned. He had been with Ahab. He escaped with his life. And he got back, and God was he knew he had done wrong, and he was about to be punished. So what happened, 3 armies came against Judah. There were 3 armies coming against Judah. And so he knew, I'm in deep doo-doo here. So he called the whole nation to come and fast. And he stood before the Lord and confessed. And he said, God, ultimately, the punchline is this: we don't know what to do, but our eyes are upon you. And that's what God wanted to hear. We don't know what to do, but we're looking to you, and we know and we believe you're going to do something, because if you don't, we're done. And so what did God tell him? He told him, put the musicians out front. And as the army marched behind the musicians, they came over the hill, and the 3 enemies, they killed each other. Well, there are 3 main enemies coming against us in our Judeo-Christian foundation of this nation. It's Islam. There's no distinction. There's no good Islam, bad Islam. It's just Islam. Okay, it's all bad. I mean, it just is at its core. You got a non-radical Muslim is like a disgruntled Baptist. Really, is all that is. But you got Islam. You've got secular humanism, and you have New Age syncretism, which is what I believe Obama is. You put everything together. But anyway, these 3 are coming against the Judeo-Christian Foundation of America, and what they're thinking in their mind, we will destroy that. We will destroy them, and once that's destroyed, then we will take care of the other 2. Each one thinks that they're going to end up prevailing against everybody else, and they're deluded in that, but that's the thought. So what we have to do, we have to pray, and we have to begin working and finding ways to fight back. With regard to the Black community, I just want to share with you, this is for anybody who wants, I brought some flyers. We have a nonprofit, it's called the Booker T. Washington Inspirational Network. If you've never read Booker T. Washington, I urge you to go read Up From Slavery and then go from there to his other books. He got it, okay? And I don't have time to tell you all the things he said or done. But anyway, the Booker T. Washington Inspirational Network is a nonprofit we have, and what we do, we're working on 2 continents, basically. We're working on changing the whole educational structure of America. Booker T. Washington said, you can fill your heads with knowledge and all the schooling you want, but if you don't have character, you will be no wiser than the dumbest. Amen. Okay, and this is what he believed. They're trying to go with class size, STEM technology, all of this, but it's not going to work, because until you develop the character, you have to want to learn, you have to understand why I learn, and you have to have a work ethic, you have to have discipline, and you have to have respect. And these are things that he wanted to dwell on. So anyway, I have some flyers here. I only have about 20 or so if there are more than one of you at a table that are together. Anyway, I've got to cut, my few seconds are over. I thank you again, Mr. Robertson, I thank you. And the rest of you guys, God bless you, and have a wonderful day, and be safe out there.